They say betrayal hurts the most when you least expect it. My family and I relocated to Canada believing we were building a future together. I sacrificed everything for my marriage. I worked day and night to keep our home afloat. But what did I get? Just 8 months later, my husband walked out on me, chasing a more glamorous woman, an ex-beauty queen. He thought I was broken. He thought I had lost everything. What he didn't know was this. The moment he left, my real story began. And in an unexpected twist of fate, our paths crossed again, presenting the perfect opportunity for my sweet revenge. My name is Chika Adebayo, and today I want to share the story of how my relocation to Canada with my family changed my life forever, so others can learn. If my story can help even one woman, then telling it is worth every breath. I was married to Femi Adebayo, the man who once stole my heart so completely that I fought like a wounded lion just to win his attention. Femi was not an ordinary man. He was breathtaking, tall, eloquent, charming, and effortlessly stylish. He dressed like a man born for the spotlight. Crisp shirts, polished shoes, perfumes that lingered in every room he entered. Everywhere we went, women turned to look at him. Femi always had a bevy of stunning, elegant ladies orbiting him, especially tall, confident ones who walked with the poise of runway models. I was beautiful too, and I never denied that. But unlike those tall, glamorous women, I wasn't the one who easily dominated a room with height and presence. I had to rely on my strength, my heart, my loyalty, and maybe a little too much of my determination. Because of the stiff competition around him, winning Femi's heart felt like a battlefield. I fought with everything in me, with love, with hope, with a stubborn belief that I could anchor him. When he finally chose me, I felt victorious, blessed, and deeply grateful, as though God had placed a crown on my head. Together, we had 2 beautiful daughters, Jane and Jo, the greatest gifts of my life. They were the joy in our home, the softness in my hardest days, and the reason I kept pushing even when love began slipping through my fingers. My mother warned me constantly. She said, "Chika, he'll break your heart. He's far too proud, far too handsome, far too smart for you to keep his attention. Remember, the love you fight for, you will always fight to keep." But I loved him. I loved him deeply. And Femi had an ego bigger than the Lagos skyline. Because of his looks, his intelligence, and the way he carried himself, people admired him. They deferred to him. He basked in that admiration, and it grew like fire in dry grass. Sometimes I wondered if he even realized how many hearts he walked past and left aflame, including mine. But I loved him enough to believe his pride could be softened by love. Beyond the ego, Femi was also a somewhat laid-back fellow, a spoiled child of some sort, who believed he could always have his way around people, especially women. And I must admit, I may have been a victim of that charm myself. He was doing okay financially, but I was the more ambitious one in terms of career growth and income, which meant I had to carry the extra financial burden, something I often did gladly. Although he was not very keen initially about our relocation, he later embraced it fully after I sold to him the idea of living the Canadian dream. When we finally got our visas approved, we celebrated it as a family. Femi, on the other hand, had already begun to speak endlessly about Canada. "Canada will recognize my greatness," he would say, his eyes glinting with excitement, reiterating how he will break every barrier to achieve great things. When we arrived in Canada, reality hit Femi like a cold slap. The cultural differences, the quiet streets, the strangers' reserve, the way people moved and spoke, shocked him. The man who had commanded respect in Lagos found himself suddenly disoriented, awkward, and lost in a society that didn't care about his titles. I, meanwhile, had to take on the weight of survival immediately. For 3 whole months, I worked multiple low-level jobs, cleaning offices, stacking shelves, shoveling snow to barely cover the bills. Meanwhile, Femi refused to take any low-level jobs, nothing in healthcare, security, or any basic employment. He stayed home, insisting he was working on bigger things. When he finally accepted a job, it seemed like a glimmer of hope. But then the reckless spending began. Femi bought a luxury car and filled his wardrobe with suits, watches, and designer colognes, while the household bills continued to pile up. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I confronted him, my voice shaking but firm. Femi, the bills are stacking and we barely have enough to get by. How can you spend so recklessly? His response was true to who he had always been, full of pride, entitlement, and a sense of superiority. You don't understand, Chica. I'm building my future. You're just worrying about what you can see. Let me handle things my way. And then came the drinking and partying. What had once been occasional indulgences became a lifestyle, a way for him to escape while I carried the household alone. At the same time, his sudden irresponsible lifestyle meant he no longer maintained the warm, fatherly relationship he once had with our two girls, Jane and Joan. I noticed how distant he had become from them, and it was beginning to worry me deeply. At this point, I still believed he was just enjoying his freedom and celebrating his new life. The strain on our household was undeniable, and the tension in our home grew heavier with each passing day. The long hours I spent juggling multiple jobs began to take a toll on me. My body ached constantly, my head throbbed, and some nights I would lie awake, unable to catch even a few hours of sleep. I could feel the fatigue settling into my bones, and I knew it was starting to affect my health. Sometimes I was too exhausted even to clean the house, leaving it untidy. One day, after returning home from long hours of work completely exhausted, I dragged myself straight to the kitchen to see if I could muscle some energy from nowhere to cook a proper meal for the girls, who had mostly been eating frozen pizza and bread for a few days. My heart broke when I saw the messy state of the stove, messed up with sticky remnants from Femi's cooking and dirty pots and bowls littered around. I am so sorry, sweethearts, I said to the girls as I gave them a warm hug. I don't have enough energy to clean the kitchen and cook for you. Please forgive me. We are fine, Mum, Jane said softly. You can go and lie down. I crawled to my bed and lay like a log of wood. Moments later, they came to tell me they had made something to eat and cleaned some of the mess. That night, I thanked God for giving me these lovely jewels as life companions. And I also prayed for God to touch Femi's heart, to be the man who once cared and supported me. As the bills kept piling up, I started relying on my credit card to pay the rent and cover urgent household expenses. Each swipe felt like a temporary lifeline, but the weight of accumulating debt pressed heavily on my mind. Femi continued his drinking and partying, prioritizing his leisure over household responsibilities. What had started as occasional indulgences escalated into a lifestyle that left me carrying almost all of the household burden. His financial contributions to the family needs were still a shocker to me. In spite of my pleas and the obvious burden of bills that was crippling my humanity daily, the most he did was to stack a few boxes of confectionery along with his favorite coffee. During those rare periods, he would occasionally try to appease the children by ordering takeout food and snacks for them. He would hand the food over personally, guide them to the table to eat briefly, and then walk away, sometimes to his room while obviously drunk. On one of those days, one of the girls went to him, asking why he didn't stay with them while they ate. He brushed them away, saying he was too tired. The children were initially excited about the food, but the brief joy quickly faded as they realized he would not engage with them meaningfully. His interactions with Jane and Joan, once filled with warmth and patience, had noticeably reduced. He would still ask about their day or share small moments, but the enthusiasm and attention he used to show were gone. I noticed the confusion and quiet disappointment in their eyes, and it weighed heavily on me. I pleaded with him one evening, begging him to help pay off at least some of my credit card debt. Femi snapped, his eyes blazing with impatience. Don't you get it, Chica? My cards are as maxed out as yours. I couldn't believe my ears, but he quickly pulled up his phone and showed me the balance on his credit card. All he had left was $85. What's really going on, Femi? I asked in despair. What is going on? He screamed. Is that I have my own responsibilities and a lifestyle to maintain. If you are expecting me to be tangled with you, living a boring low life in an already boring society, I am sorry. It's not going to happen. Listen, Chica, I will not compromise my happiness for anything. I deserve the good life, and no one can stop me. He stormed out, leaving me standing motionless for a few moments, trying to come up with some justifications for his recent, unbelievable behavior. But the longer I stood, the more reality hit me. For the first time in over 12 years of our marriage, I started feeling that something might not be right. One afternoon, I went to the grocery store to buy some essentials for the house. The weight of everything, bills, exhaustion, worry for the children, pressed down on me like a stone. As I stood in front of the cashier next in line, staring at my list, wishing I could get everything we wanted, especially the nice gifts Jane and Joan wished for, everyone around me looked happy. Why was I the only one not happy? I thought to myself, drained in thoughts of my new life, cold, unsatisfying, and unforgiving. I tried to escape some of my misery by staring at the far ends of the store, and then my eyes caught a lovely couple laughing fondly in a loving posture. What a lovely couple, I thought to myself in admiration and envy. I wished that was Femi and I, though such moments had become more of a wish than reality for us. Then he turned, and that moment my heart froze. The man I was admiring with another woman was my husband. For a moment, it looked like someone had pulled my life out of my body. Everything in my body stopped working for a moment. And suddenly, I jerked back to consciousness. Apparently, the cashier had been calling me as it was my turn to pay. Everyone could tell I was terrified by something, but what they didn't know was that the terror was my sworn lover, loving a strange woman a few meters away. With shaky hands and a non-functional mind, I managed to pick my few items into the shopping cart to leave the store. There was something familiar about this woman, tall, stunning, elegant, just like the ones back home in Lagos. Are you going to start fighting again? I reasoned amidst my flurry of thoughts as I slowly pushed my cart out of the store with one hand, the other hand wiping hot tears back from my eyes. When I got back to the house that day, I was the very shadow of myself. Every step felt like I was walking through thick, heavy fog, my energy sapped and my mind spinning with disbelief. My heart ached and my thoughts replayed the image of him at the grocery store with that other woman. The house felt oppressively silent. The faint lingering smells of cold coffee and leftover snacks reminded me of how little support I had received throughout the day. I clutched my arms around myself, seeking comfort that wasn't there. Questions pressed against my chest. Who was she? Why were they so close? Why did it hurt this deeply? I knew that tonight I had to confront him. But first, I ensured that Jane and Joan were fast asleep. Their peaceful, innocent faces gave me quiet strength, something I hadn't felt in years. The whole time I was waiting for him to come in, my heart wouldn't stop pounding. I rehearsed the burning questions, pacing the sitting room and sipping warm water at intervals. Then came the moment of truth as he opened the door and saw me standing in the middle of the room, rigid, trembling, determined. My posture alone told him this was not a normal night. "Hi, Chica. You're still awake?" he said casually, already heading toward the bedroom. With a sudden rush of courage, I moved in front of him. "You're going nowhere until you tell me who she is." "What do you mean by she?" Femi shot back sharply. "Are you losing your mind?" "I mean the woman at the grocery shop," I said steadily but firmly. "Who is she?" My eyes locked onto his, and his eyes searched desperately for an escape route that didn't exist. He exhaled, forcing his voice into a casual tone. "Oh, her? She's just a colleague. We're working on a project together. I held his gaze, trying to detect even the slightest crack in his confidence. Femi, what kind of project? And why were you standing that close? What is so difficult for you to understand about a female colleague? He snapped, trying to regain control. His tone was irritated, but his eyes were restless. Before I could speak again, he added, Chica, so every time I talk to a woman now, you'll suspect me? Do you even understand the kind of society we live in? I can't laugh with someone without you turning it into a crisis. For a moment, just a moment, his words sounded almost reasonable. Part of me wanted to believe him, to hold on to something, anything, that would silence the storm inside me. But something still felt wrong. Deep, unsettling, wrong. That night, when I finally lay down, sleep refused to come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, standing too close, smiling too warmly. No matter which way I turned, the grocery shop lovely image followed me. Staring at the bare ceiling, my mind wandered into a deep, painful reflection. Was my decision to relocate to Canada the ghost now haunting me? Was my mother right when she said, never fight for a man's love? Suddenly, I now had a new problem. How do I know if the man I cherished with my whole heart was still mine? And then, slowly, painfully, everything began to add up, like puzzle pieces falling into place. The smell of a foreign perfume, the red lipstick stain he denied, the late nights, the sudden work outings, his affection fading like evening light. In the days that followed, one question echoed constantly. How do you know when a man has truly walked away? I could have given anything not to call my mum, but I was too desperate, and so I went on to call her anyway. My mum had been a marriage counselor for many years, and with her experience, I knew she would have the answer. She listened quietly as I struggled through my words. Then she said softly, when a man starts keeping silent, or starts shouting over a straightforward question, you may have already lost him, or be very close to losing him. She paused. Chica, my daughter, is everything okay in your home? Yes, Mum, I lied. We're doing quite well. I hated myself for saying it, but at that moment, hope felt safer than truth. In the following weeks, I found myself reflecting deeply on my life, trying to understand what was happening between me and Femi. Is it wrong to fight for love? Is he punishing me for something I did, or am I simply a victim of circumstance? Like every woman, I had dreamed of us conquering our struggles together, supporting each other, building something unbreakable. But sometimes life breaks you in the very places you trusted most. After exhausting every attempt to get Femi to help with our finances, and receiving nothing in return, I surrendered. I decided to carry my cross for the sake of my girls. And I reminded myself that money should be my slave, not my master. One freezing winter morning, after I had just closed from work, I stood shivering at the bus stop, wrapped in my God-forsaken layers of winter gear, waiting for the next bus after missing mine. Suddenly, an old colleague from Nigeria pulled over and offered me a ride. She drove me home that morning, her warmth a sudden relief against the bitter cold. She listened to my story, then shook her head firmly. Chica, you are a seasoned corporate professional, one of the best project managers I ever worked with. And you didn't just have experience, you had solid professional certifications in project management back home. Chica, with your background and credentials, cleaning homes? No way! That same day, she recommended a short refresher course and a professional certification upgrade to help me get a job even faster. Take this refresher course, she said, and add one more quick certification. With your experience and the certifications you already have, you'll stand out immediately. In 2 months, you'll pay off your credit card debt and never stand in the cold again. That same day, she paid the $1,000 fee herself, A kindness so unexpected it nearly brought tears to my eyes. The hug she gave me afterward was one of the warmest things I had felt in a very long time. The months following that night had left a heavy shadow over our home. The tension, the distrust, and the cold distance between Femi and me had become the air we breathed. Even after securing a fantastic job as a project director for a major construction firm, an achievement I had pursued with every ounce of strength and determination, breaking through barriers of lack and limitation for the sake of our family, I couldn't bring myself to tell Femi. He never seemed to notice, never cared, and the silence of our fractured relationship made celebrating my success impossible. Yet 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, a quiet, determined resolve began to take root in my heart. I could no longer stand the lovelessness that had settled into our home, the friction and doubt that clouded every interaction. Maybe Mum was right, after all. I fought for his love leading to our marriage, and yes, I was ready to fight to keep it and not watch one of my most prized belongings slip into the hands of a total stranger. I decided it was time to fight, not with anger, but with intention and courage, to reclaim our love and rebuild the connection that had been buried beneath months of neglect. I envisioned Valentine's Day as the perfect moment, a day meant for love, a day I could turn into a reminder of what we once had and what we still could have. I began planning carefully, thinking of ways to reach him gently, to spark warmth in his eyes, and to bring joy back into our home. Each day leading to that Valentine's, my heart swelled with fantasies of our reunion. I imagined the warmth returning to his gaze, the softness of laughter we had lost, and the renewal of the bond we once cherished. The excitement of my new bumper pay, a tangible symbol of my effort and success, added a secret delight, knowing it would pleasantly surprise him. After he accepted my invitation, I looked forward to Valentine's Day with a mix of hope, anticipation, and the thrill of reclaiming a love I refused to let go. The restaurant glowed like a dream, soft golden light spilling from chandeliers shaped like falling stars, violin music gliding tenderly through the air. Each table was dressed in white linen and roses, every couple lost in a quiet world of laughter and candlelight. Waiters in crisp black and white floated from table to table, bearing trays of champagne and chocolate-dipped strawberries. At a small corner by the window, in where the city lights danced on the glass, I sat alone. I looked breathtaking. My red silk dress hugged me like a whisper, elegant but not loud, the kind of red that said I still believed in love. My hair, swept to one side, shimmered under the candle flame. A thin silver chain rested on my collarbone, the same one he'd given me on our anniversary. My lips were painted the color of hope, my eyes glowing with the quiet excitement of a woman who had chosen forgiveness over bitterness. For weeks I had prayed and planned this dinner. I'd imagined him walking through the door, smiling, his face soft with apology, and how we'd laugh again like we used to. I imagined how his eyes would light up when I handed him my employment letter, how proud he would be, how happy we would both feel, starting afresh with good news and new beginnings. I imagined him taking my hand across the table, squeezing it gently the way he used to. I imagined him leaning in to kiss me softly, a kiss that said we were okay again, that we had found our way back to each other. Maybe tonight would be the start of something new, a rebuilding after the storm. The violinist began playing At Last by Etta James, and my heart fluttered. He loves this song, I thought. I touched my phone, checking the time, 7:15 p.m. He was only 15 minutes late. That was okay. Maybe traffic, maybe flowers. Around me, couples leaned close, hands brushing, eyes locking. The air smelled of roses and wine, of love renewed and promises whispered. A waiter approached with a smile that trembled with politeness. "Would you like to order now, Mum, or shall I give you a few more minutes?" I smiled faintly. "A few more minutes, please. He'll be here soon." 7:30 p.m. My heart began to tap against my ribs. I sipped my water, trying to look calm. I scrolled through my phone, opening his messages. See you tonight, babe. He'd sent that just this morning. I stared at it, trying to pull comfort from the pixels. 7:45 p.m. The restaurant was now full. Laughter rippled like warm air. My smile had started to fade around the edges. The candle on my table burned lower, wax pooling quietly like melting hope. My fingers traced the rim of my wine glass. Maybe something came up. Maybe he's on his way. My thoughts tried to soothe me, but my chest was tightening, a slow, silent panic. I looked toward the door again. Still no sign of him. 8:10 p.m. The violin stopped. The playlist changed. A slow, jazzy tune that made couples sway gently in their seats. I blinked hard. The tears were close now. I straightened my back, inhaled sharply, and forced a smile when the waiter passed again. Yes, I said softly. I'll have the steak for 2. He'll be here any minute. But deep down, I knew. My phone stayed still. My heart, not so much. 8:40 p.m. I couldn't hold it anymore. My fork trembled in my hand. The first tear slipped down before I could stop it. Then another and another, until my vision blurred completely. I lowered my head, trying to hide my face from the crowd, but the sobs came out like broken glass. Soft, sharp, uncontrollable. The waiter froze, unsure whether to approach. Nearby diners pretended not to notice, though their eyes flickered with pity. The violinist glanced my way, faltered on a note, then turned his gaze back to the strings. I pressed my napkin against my mouth, my shoulders shaking. It wasn't just about him not showing up, it was about everything. The silent fights, the doubts, the lies, the hope I had clung to with both hands. The dress that once made me feel powerful now felt like a costume. The silver necklace felt heavy, almost mocking. I whispered to myself, you said. Outside, rain began to fall. Light at first, then steady, him washing the glass in ripples of silver. Inside, the laughter continued, but to me it sounded distant, hollow, like echoes from a life I no longer belonged to. When I finally stood to leave, my chair scraped the floor, a sound that made heads turn. My face was streaked, mascara smudged, eyes red yet strangely clear. I walked out quietly, clutching my purse like something fragile, and as the doors swung shut behind me, the violin began to play again, a soft, sorrowful tune, as if the whole restaurant exhaled with me. As I stepped out into the rain, the cool droplets hit my face, mingling with my tears. I was too numb to bother calling a cab at first. I had already walked a few meters under the rain before remembering I had an umbrella, by which time I was wet already. My bones creaked under the weight of my heavy heart as I climbed the stairs to our apartment, my wet dress sending cold shivers into my flesh under my jacket, my tears falling on the wooden floor beneath. When I entered our home, I noticed a sharp contrast. Our home was hollow, silent, and depressing compared to the vibrant, cheerful, musical ambience of the restaurant. I watched my 2 angels sleeping in their room. You're all I have now, I whispered with a cracked voice, feeling pure love radiating from their sweet souls. As I dried my wet body in the bathroom, I knew I had to face him eventually, but for now, I just wanted to be alone. I wore my woolen pajamas and increased the room heater to help with my cold. I tried to calm my nerves by scrolling through old photos and remembering the good times. I tried looking at our photos on the phone, but those images wouldn't go away. The couples laughing lovingly and the empty seat in front of me. I had never longed for love more than I felt that day. I promised myself to remain strong. But then the tears began rolling down my cheeks again. I pressed my face into the cold fabric of the pillow, inhaling deeply the faint scent of our home. A place now filled with absence, betrayal, and longing. Even as the sky outside faded to dusk, the room still felt colder than the winter winds that rattled the windows. My body sagged under the heaviness of my disappointment, but my mind raced with questions I could not silence. Was I fighting for something real, or had love become a phantom I had been chasing all along? Yes, my pride may have been bruised, my soul pierced, and the pain might linger on. But I could always draw strength from this one thing. At least I had fought with intention, courage, and for love. As I laid my face on the teary pillow, trying to make sense of my marriage, or at least what was left of it, I saw Femi's message flash on my phone for the first time since he sent the only message that morning. It was an 8-word message that read, "I am sorry, Chica, something came up at work." By the time Femi returned past midnight, I was far too empty, too frail, and broken. When he entered the room, he was silent for a few seconds, his eyes flickering with uneasy movements. Then he said, "I'm sorry, but I already sent you an apology. Hope you saw it." His voice more rehearsed than repentant. He walked further into the room, his movements stiff and uneasy. He tossed his jacket carelessly onto the table, the sound landing between us like a cold insult. Without saying much else, he muttered something under his breath and headed straight into the bathroom. The door clicked shut behind him, and I lay there, drained and empty, staring at the ceiling while the sound of running water filled the silence between us. I thought my day was bad enough, but I had no idea there was yet an unacted scene in this unfolding horror drama. While Femi was still in the bathroom, a few pieces of paper slipped out of his jacket on the table. My body moved before my mind could process it. I picked them up. A receipt, perfume, jewelry, roses, a dinner for two, all bought tonight, all for someone who wasn't me. Then the phone light blinked from the wardrobe, a soft, cruel light. I opened it. The first message punched the air out of my chest. "Tonight was perfect, my love." Then another one followed. "Thank you again for everything. No one has ever treated me this beautifully." And another, "I can't stop smiling. You made me feel special." And finally, the one that shattered me. "I wish tonight didn't have to end." My heart cracked open in a way that defied words. Before Femi returned that night, I had said to myself I would keep silent by just facing the wall and thinking my life away. My mind was so cluttered, my thoughts too heavy and discordant, and I needed a quiet spell to regain a bit of myself. But when Femi stepped out of the bathroom, wiping his face with a towel, after what I had seen in that receipt and the love messages, I knew that was the moment that held the key to our future. This was no time for reason, hope, or flattery. It was a moment of stark reality. Yes or no, right or wrong, us or them. It was as if fire was burning inside my bones. I asked calmly, with teary eyes, "Why have you decided to kill the love we have built and cherished because of a strange woman?" Femi, what happened to our bond, our togetherness, the support we shared, the promises of our love? What happened to you? Which man stands his wife up in a love arena to face humiliation while you were gifting your love to another woman? Which man buys Valentine gifts worth $1,000 for a woman he barely knows, sharing your sacred romance with her while you starve your wife of a simple kiss and watch your family wallow in lack? I need an answer, Femi. What happened to our love? "I didn't create love, Chica. How can I control it?" He responded sharply, irritated. This was it. I couldn't hold it any longer. I let out all the bottled anger and pain of the last 8 months. "You are such a heartless man, Femi. Mean and irresponsible even to your own blood. A backstabber, a love slayer who perhaps never deserved any ounce of my love. I knew you were a cheap opportunist, but I paid for it with love. I thought you were bold and confident, but no. You are a coward and faint-hearted. A real man will stand to defend and protect his wife, his family, and the love that binds us, even in the face of adversity. Look me in the face and tell me you are a real man, Femi. Tell me!" I shouted at the top of my voice. Enough, Chica. Leave me alone, he barked, eyes blazing. You convinced me to relocate with you to Canada. To do what? Sit with you and live this boring low life. I love the good life, and you know it. And if I can't get it with you, I'll get it anyway. For the first time after he said those words, it dawned on me that my man might truly be gone. Femi spent the rest of the night packing his belongings. My heart was now too fragile to take it, and so I took one of my prescription pills to knock myself off to sleep. By the time Joan woke me up the next morning, Femi was gone. He had left 2 notes beside my phone, one for the children and the other for me. I held them with trembling hands and they read, "Dear Jane and Joan, I'm sorry I had to leave for work outside town. I will miss you girls dearly, but occasionally I might pop up to see you. Be the best in all you do. I love you, Daddy. Dear Chica, after considering my life, my future, and my happiness, I decided to leave. I know this wasn't what we hoped for, but forgive me if you can. There comes a time when a man has to move on. Goodbye, and take care of you guys." Then I looked, but Femi was gone, leaving behind broken hearts, a broken home, and memories of pain, betrayal, and the relics of love. I still remember how tightly I held my girls close to my bosom that morning, tears streaming down my face, promising to be everything they needed me to be, come rain or shine. I spent the last 2 weeks trying to put everything that had happened between Femi and me behind me, focusing on forging a new path. My immediate priorities were to resume my new job, which Femi still didn't know about, pay off my debts, buy a new house, and spoil Jane and Joan with the good things of life. On my first day at my new job, I was met with a pleasant shock, a strange twist of fate that stretched my mind for a moment. The very same woman I had seen with Femi at the grocery store, the one he left me for, was an employee in the same department I now headed. She didn't know me, but I knew her too well. At first I didn't know how to feel about it, but then I decided to play along quietly. One of my first tasks was to recruit a cost accountant who would work with me on a new construction project. Prior to the day of the interview, she approached me seeking help for her boyfriend. And obviously, that was Femi. She tried to promote him, highlighting his accounting qualifications and experience, but I listened closely, probing with personal questions about both of them. During one of our interactions, Betty, Femi's girlfriend, tried to draw sympathy when she confided in me that Femi had recently lost his job and they really needed the money from a high-paying role like this to fund their proposed marriage. My heart sank one more time when I heard the word marriage. But then my face lit up again when I realized the magnitude of what I had just heard. In the course of my interactions with Betty, she had told me she was once a beauty queen back home in her native country of Brazil and that she came from a wealthy family. Betty was no doubt stunningly beautiful and adorable too. She might simply have been a victim of circumstance, I thought to myself. However, what she didn't know was that she had just served me the most brilliant revenge recipe on a gold platter. I promised her I would help Femi secure the job if he performed just okay at the interview. When the day of the interview arrived, I used my position as department head to deliberately appoint Betty as the second panel member. The plan was perfect. She would witness everything and see the shame Femi would feel. When Femi walked into the room, his face immediately froze. His eyes widened and he shouted, "Chica!" The room turned cold and silent. But I stood tall, confident, gorgeous, untouchable, the power of my new role reflecting in my posture and gaze. With professional poise and authority, I began speaking. "Welcome to your interview session for the position of cost accountant, Mr. Femi Adebayo. My name is Mrs. Chika Adebayo, Director of Projects. I apologize for not revealing my personal identity earlier. It was necessary for the integrity of this recruitment process." The interview progressed. First, I asked him to test his academic qualification, which I knew he had. Then I asked questions designed to test morals, empathy, and character. Finally, I said, I have one more question for you, Mr. Femi. If you can answer it correctly, you have the job. I saw Betty's eyes light up with hope, but Femi still wouldn't bat an eyelid. He knew that what was coming next was no good. I asked, if you were interviewing a lady for the position of cost accountant to work in your team, and the lady happened to be your wife who betrayed your love and left you for another man who happened to be on that same interview panel, would you give her the job? Femi's jaw dropped. He stared at me with utter disbelief. Then after a while, he managed to put together 4 words. Please, don't do this. Beside me, his girlfriend was equally perplexed and lost. Then, with a firm, bossy tone, I said, Mr. Femi, you couldn't answer the question because what that woman did to her husband, the interviewer, is exactly what you have just done to me. There would be no need for you to hear from me later. You've lost the job. Then I delivered the final blow. You are qualified academically, Femi, but I am sorry. I cannot work in the same office with a man who couldn't stay in the same house with me. Betty's confusion deepened. She turned sharply toward him. Femi, what is going on? What is she talking about? Still nothing. His mouth moved, but no words came out. At that point, I stood up gracefully, straightened my blazer, and declared, the interview is closed. Mr. Femi, you may now take your leave. The room stiffened. Femi swallowed hard, still speechless, and slowly stood up, his embarrassment filling every corner of the room. 2 days after the interview, Betty came to me privately. She apologized for everything that had happened, told me that Femi had lied to her, and confessed she was ending the relationship. She also handed me her resignation, saying she couldn't continue working there under the circumstances. Her confession reinforced my decision. The job had to be handled with integrity, and Femi had no place in it. After the interview and Betty's resignation, Femi called me and pleaded to see me at my place, hoping for forgiveness. I agreed to meet him, but only in a public restaurant with a table for 2, which I paid for. Femi and I arrived at the restaurant at the same time. The air was cool, the lights soft, and the ambience quiet enough to hear my own breath. I could feel my heart pounding, but this time it was different. I was in control. When Femi sat across from me, his eyes widened. The first words he managed to say were shaky, broken, and filled with desperation. Is that your car? I smiled calmly, leaning back with sheer arrogance. Yes, you like it? And also a big house too for the girls and me only. Femi took a deep breath, struggling to maintain his composure. He reached for my hand, his voice pleading, Chica, please, can we talk? I'm sorry for everything. I don't know what came over me. I still love you. I want to make things right. Please forgive me. I pulled my hand away, still smiling, eyeing him with calculated composure. Talk so you can talk. You had your chance, Femi, and now you've used up all your aces. Next time, learn to keep an ace for times like this. Now the game is over, and you're obviously not the winner. He stammered, hoping for mercy. His face pale, he whispered, After all we've shared, after everything, can't we just go back? Chica, Ham, please. I leaned in, my voice calm, controlled, and sharp. We can't go back, Femi. Not after what you've shown me. There was no reason for you to leave us. You chose your path with eyes wide open. You allowed pride, selfishness, and vain pursuit of life's illusions to turn your heart against the very people God placed in your life. The very people you should protect, love, and die for. But what did you do? You stabbed me in the back and betrayed my love. Then I slid the letter across the table. Here's the divorce letter for you to sign and return to the lawyer. He staggered, his voice cracking as he finally asked, And what about the girls? He asked. I looked him straight in the eye and said, They are safe, loved, and happy, and you will no longer be part of their troubles. Chica, you can't do this to me, he shouted. desperate, almost unable to believe his own ears. I stayed calm, hands steady, eyes locked on his. I can. It's over for us. You can have your good life. Goodbye for me. He looked shocked and stunned. I stood and walked majestically toward the door. His eyes followed me, mouth gaping, almost unable to believe. I looked at him one last time before shutting the door behind me. In that moment, the man I saw was different. Not the proud, confident, charming man whose love I fought for, but a man now miserable, dejected, and empty, beaten at his own game. And with his mouth still gaping, I shut the door behind me. Love is something to be given with an open heart, but sometimes you might just be giving it to the wrong heart.